This is Chris Voss from the chrisvossshow.com, the chrisvossshow.com. I want to talk to you about sales and selling here and how it is important to build relationships in sales. The first thing you should do when you're trying to sell people and motivate them to be interested in your product or service and what you're doing, and obviously they're probably in a position of needing your service or products. Sometimes they don't know if they need your service or product, so there's an education process there. But many times, the first thing you need to do is build a personal relationship, and then that can be done in very short time, getting to know people, and then finding out what their wants and needs are, what their desires, what they're trying to achieve, what their challenges might be, and then from there, explaining to them how your product or service can help them achieve their goals, not only in their personal life, but or their business life, but also to help them achieve what they want to achieve. One of the most important things I used to teach all my salespeople is the first question I wanted them to ask when that client called or they started talking to them, other than just the simple rapport stuff, getting to know someone, shaking their hand, asking them, the common things that you would in small talk. The most important thing was, what are you trying to accomplish? And invariably, whenever we'd have a client that would be having a problem, usually 9 times out of 10, it was a client who didn't feel that he'd been listened to and that we hadn't given him what he wanted, usually because the salesperson had never asked him that simple line, what are you trying to accomplish? Now, selling is about relationships. I don't believe in passive relationships. I don't believe in a lot of stuff that people are putting out there, that somehow there's a redefinement of what's going on in the world. Relationships and sales have been around since the beginning of time, and they always have been. Anybody who thinks that social media is the new definition of relationship and sales is a moron. And they obviously don't know anything about sales or have been selling for any given length of time or been successful at it, I probably should say too. It seems like a lot of people running around social media that say you shouldn't be selling, you say you should be marketing, and you say you shouldn't be going out there and doing stuff, and suggest that maybe some of the stuff you should be doing is more passive. I would run from those people, and I talk to plenty of broke future clients of ours every day that have wasted money on those people. Sales is about relationships, and it always has been. Social media is nothing different. Two examples I want to give this story. I recently went to meet with some folks to get to know them better. I didn't know what really they had to offer, and I don't know if we were going to work together or if they were going to work with me or what our relationship was going to be. So I went to meet with them, and they had several groups of people that were also meeting with them to try and apply for their services and get involved with what they were doing. It was kind of funny. Well, I was building a relationship with some of the people there, talking to them and just commingling with everybody, not pushing a business agenda on everybody, trying to figure out who was who and what was what, and getting to know everybody on a personal level. One of the participants in the group was just completely pushing the agenda. Here's my resume, here's my portfolio. I really want this job. I really want this job. How can I get this job? What's the best way to position myself to get this job? Bada. I mean, just humping the leg of the poor person that was in charge of overseeing this project. Not building relationships, just going right for the throat. Kind of like, I suppose you'd equate it to dating. Going for third base on the first date or in the first 5 minutes or something. It's really important to build relationships with your client, to get to know them better. I usually like to know who I'm doing business with, so I like to spend a little bit more time getting to know them, and I also like them to have a little bit more time getting to know me. I'm very comfortable doing that because I'm very comfortable with my honesty, my integrity, and how I do business. So you can get to know me all day long. I really want you to get to know me, because if we're going to do business together, it's going to work out a whole lot better. And I don't have anything to hide. I'm very honest and straightforward in my business, and I do business with honest partners, and I want my clients to be honest with me, because if they're deceptive, it's just going to complicate the process, obviously. So another example I recently had was someone on Twitter. They approached me, and it's interesting how people approach you with their own misguided assumptions of who you are, or what you're about, or what's going on. And this is an example of how people approach me sometimes on Twitter. And what was very interesting was this. Both these people seem to come from a background that seems to be really popular in social media, this genre out there that seems to think that you shouldn't be selling and that people like to be sold, which is a bunch of silly BS. People don't like to be manhandled in a sales experience. They like to find someone they identify with, and they like to be sold, but they like to be sold the right way. And what's very funny was in his pictures, he had a picture that said "selling sucks." Like I say, the more people that I find that pontificate about how you shouldn't be selling in social media and all this kind of crap, are usually the people who really suck at selling at marketing, couldn't make a living at it, and you really don't want those people running your campaign. That's just my advice. So the question started out with from this gentleman. I never talked to him before. I suddenly start getting these DM tweets from him. He's like, "What is your challenge?" And which is a pretty broad question when it comes down to it. And so I wrote him back and I said, "Well, are we assuming that I have a challenge? I might have a perfect life." He wrote back and he goes, "No, what's your challenge? You must have a challenge." And I said, "Well, or what's the challenge?" And I said, "Well, for me or for the rest of the world?" And you could tell that he was asking leading questions to go someplace. The problem was he hadn't shook my hand, he hadn't built any rapport, he hadn't gotten to know me, he hadn't let me get to know him. And I'm like, why am I getting peppered with the FBI, who are you and why are you here and why did you cross the border, conversation with these people? And I get that a lot on social media. These people want to pepper you right away with their presumptive ideas. And I think it's a dangerous thing that you want to be careful about. When you're approaching people, am I pushing my presumptive ideas or what I've assumed about them? Or am I giving them a chance to blossom and grow and really let me find out who they are? So the leading questions just kept on peppering. And the more they peppered, I said, look, you're asking questions that I can't really answer in a 140-character format anyway. What is the general challenge of life or business? You want me to answer that in 140 characters? I mean, really, let's move this to a form that's more appropriate to that. And the person just kept getting more and more frustrated, and I kept putting up more and more walls. What is the reason I'm putting up walls? Because he's obviously trying to lead me somewhere where I don't know. And number two, he hasn't built a relationship with me. He hasn't gotten personal with me. I don't even know who the hell he is. Finally, I broke him down. I said, look, you're obviously trying to sell me something. Well, just tell me what the bottom line is. Let's cut to the chase. Let's quit wasting our time. And at that point, he finally decides to gain rapport with me by telling me that he watches my show, he likes the videos, he likes the experience, but he's also trying to push something on me. He was basically saying that, do I know my customers? And I would hope I know my customers. If you've seen my About page on my resume, I've made $1 or $2 in business. I think maybe $3 in business. And his point is that I don't talk enough about my customers, so obviously I don't know my customers. And he equated me the rule that I can't be in business unless I know my customers. So just want to let everybody know here I'm not really in business because he's assumed that I know my customers. Anyway, the argument's kind of inane. But the thing I want to tell you is I threw up a lot of walls initially because he didn't get to know me from the get-go. He didn't build a relationship. And building relationships are very important in sales. I get a lot of business clients that come from the Chris Voss Show because they get to build a relationship with me. And, of course, relationships are relative to degrees. And they get to know me through this medium, and they can decide whether they want to do business with me or not. So I would impart to you that that's a very important aspect in doing sales, and it's a very important aspect of being successful. Build relationships, find out what your clients need, help your clients with what they need, and then give them what you need through your service or product. So that's basically it. Be sure you shake people's hand. Be sure you kiss them before you try and do other things to the rest of their body parts. Okay? Make sure you warm them up a little bit and get to know them and sell them a great product or service. Thanks for coming by the ChrisVossShow.com. Bye-bye.